Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by
A2H, engineers, architects, and planners, creating an enhanced quality of life for their clients and our community. More about A2H's services and markets is at a2h.com.
the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
The new president of LeMoyne-Owen College, tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Dr. Andrea Lewis Miller, new president of LeMoyne-Owen College. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. So you've been in the job 2 months.
Yes.
You are a Memphian. We'll get to your background, but returning now to the school. Mm-hmm. I should note, great significance, the first female president.
Absolutely.
Tell me something I don't know, or the people of Memphis don't know about LeMoyne-Owen College that they should know.
Wow. What they probably don't know is that the college has a long history of really working with students who probably would not otherwise do well at some of the other colleges that are here. And we do a lot of nurturing. And we bring students, we take them from where they are and produce really great graduates to do well.
And has that always been the mission, or is that a mission that's evolved over time?
No, that's a mission that has evolved over time. The college started out really providing teachers for Memphis City schools. It was a long-standing history of providing teachers.
About 1,000 students, give or take?
About 1,000. Mm-hmm.
And historically black college.
Historically black.
How many are historically black colleges? are there in the United States right now?
Oh, maybe about 119, really? 120.
Okay.
Yeah.
Private
and state.
Private and state. Mm-hmm. What's the importance of that?
Well, I think that we still have students who come to us who are coming from homes where they don't have parents to give them the kind of experiences that makes them very comfortable being somewhere else. And because we are a small environment, very nurturing, they feel more comfortable coming to us, many of them. Now, many of them can go anywhere. Right. But I think one of the reasons why many choose to come to us is that we're small and we nurture. And that's very important sometimes.
What percentage of kids live on campus?
Oh, probably about not quite a third, but maybe,
a third.
Yeah.
Okay. And most from Memphis or the greater Memphis area?
No, we recruit from all over the country. Yes.
From everywhere. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that a higher and higher priority? I'll get Bill here in a second, but has that been a higher priority in recent years, or has that always been the case?
Dormitories?
No, let's start with that.
Okay.
Yeah. How has that changed?
Well, when I was a student at LeMoyne-Owen, we didn't have dormitories. And so we have a very nice dormitory now, state of the art, that we didn't have even when I was there as a professor. But that has evolved over time. And the recruitment nationally, that was the other thing because we do have dormitories. So prior to the dormitories, most of our students were local except our athletes. I got you. And so now that we have dormitories, there's a nationwide recruitment effort. Bill.
Dr. Miller, the phrase that I keep on hearing from educators in higher education is that institutions have to be able to meet students where they are. Mm-hmm. And it seems as if students are in so many places. You have students who are not necessarily there for a 4-year degree. They may be there for job training, for job certification. Mm-hmm. How much is higher education changing as we speak in general?
I think in a lot of ways it's changing. There is a focus now, and there has to be a focus on aligning programs, academic programs and training programs with the needs of business and industry. Typically, community colleges have been very good at doing that, but I think more 4-year colleges and universities are beginning to do that. So that's a change. LeMoyne-Owen has traditionally been liberal arts, but we now are looking at how do we begin to align our programming with the needs of business and industry, because that's important. And we value our liberal arts tradition, but we also recognize that we have students who sometimes the liberal arts curriculum may not be what they need, and so we need to give them options.
Right. Are the numbers as high as they once were for the number of teachers that come out of Lemoyne-on College?
Not as high as they once were, no. But we need to reclaim that tradition. I think it's very important that we do, because I think that K through 12, that's a very important population of students that need so very much these days. And I'd like to have teacher education, especially alternative teacher training, to be a center of excellence at Lemoyne-on. I think we need to go back there and really reconnect with Shelby County Schools and the alternative school district and provide the kind of individuals they need to be teachers and principals and counselors and the like.
You are the second alum to be president of the college, following Johnny Watson, who was also an alum. And you came here from community colleges in Baton Rouge most recently, and before that?
Lake Charles.
Right.
Sewalla Technical Community College.
So when this job came open, what drew you to it? Obviously, it's home.
Yeah. Well, I think when you think about the times that you mentioned and how education is very different, I think that Lemoyne-on, as it is today, has to be very different if it's going to be extremely viable and if we're going to be able to compete with the rest of the colleges and universities in the area. So what really excited me about coming back was the opportunity to transform the school into something very different, but something that also would meet the needs of the students that we serve and the communities that we serve. So I like being a part of making things very different.
2 months into the job, do you know specifically what different looks like, or is this a process to move toward what that looks like?
I'm having some idea of what that difference looks like. Again, the academic programming, I don't think that we can just stay with the liberal arts tradition. We've got to branch out and look at something different other than liberal arts. So that we need to develop a niche. I don't know that since teacher education that the college has had a niche. And so we're looking at information technology, information systems. We're looking at that. We're looking at engineering and some other things that we're looking at. So we have got to be able to say to individuals in the community, if you want a degree that's going to guarantee you going to graduate school or getting into the job market in this area or that area, you might want to think about Lemoyne-on.
The residence hall is, I think, about a year or two old at this point. Is Lemoyne-on College at the right size? Does it need to have a larger student body? Does it need to have a smaller student body?
I think it needs to be a little larger. I do. I think that one of the things that we are trying to move away from is that we're very tuition dependent. And so I think that we do need to have, I would like to see maybe 5 years from now, 5 to 7 years from now, that the college has about 2,500 students. But within the next 3 years, I'd like to see us at about 1,500.
And to do that is expensive? Or is it just a matter of hard work and recruitment and the kind of vision you're talking about?
I think it's not as expensive as one would think. We need to do more online programming. We need to get into not just the bachelor's degree, but maybe offer some licensures and certificates. And we need to think about alternative campuses, places where students can go and take a particular program that's not at 807 Walker. So I don't think we could have 2,500 where we are anyway. So we would have to have some branch campuses.
And does some of that involve, partnerships with other community organizations, with business?
Absolutely. We have to be very strategic about that growth.
Yeah.
And so that growth can't be in everything.
Yeah.
The growth will be in, I think we ought to offer some programs in allied health, for example, which we don't offer. And so we have to really get with the chamber and business and industry and be very strategic about what new program we will provide, because we want to make sure that when a student finishes with that program, that he or she can really go on to graduate school or go into the world of work.
And like a lot of, schools just generally it's been a rough everybody was hit hard in the Great Recession. Schools were hit hard because alumni didn't have as much money, because states have cut back their budgets, all these reasons. Lemoyne has had a couple rough years in terms of drawing down money from its endowment to, at a rate I think everyone would say you would not like to do, $1 million and then $1 million, maybe roughly $2 million over a 2-year period. Do you feel like you are in financially strong shape?
Yes, we are now, and I think most schools are not as tuition dependent as we are, and that's why those things happen. And so what we have to concentrate on is increasing the endowment.
Okay. Yeah. So that when you say tuition dependent, you mean you want to supplement with endowment money and grants and other things?
Right now, probably 75% of the budget is dependent on tuition. And so if we have even a slight decrease in the number of students from fall to fall or from fall to spring, it impacts us.
Yeah.
And we need to move away from that. But the way to get away from being so dependent on tuition is to make sure you increase your endowment.
And what does it cost a year?
How about $10,000 tuition and fees, and then the dormitories, depending on single, double, could be anywhere from about $3,000 to $5,000. So I'd say, on the average, if you're living in the dormitories, $14,000 to $15,000 per year,
which is a lot of money.
Yes,
but is a lot less than a lot of other places.
Yes.
I mean, and this whole kind of in the national trend, this look at people focus a lot on skyrocketing inflation in healthcare and have big fights about Obamacare and the controls. But the inflation in at colleges is really amazing across the country. Does this put you? I mean, so you've got schools that are 60, 70. I mean, just the numbers are astronomical. Is that an advantage for you in some ways? That I mean, it's expensive, but a whole lot less expensive than some of these other schools that kids might look at.
Yeah, in some ways. But what we look at is what's the tuition of the students in the area.
Okay.
That's who I think in some ways we're competing with the most, I think. And so as a private institution, we are a little bit more than the state schools like the University of Memphis, or maybe not so much for the University of Memphis, certainly the community college.
Okay.
But 94% of our students are on financial aid, and probably almost as many on Pell Grants.
On Pell Grants. And was there a change, and I should have researched this before, but Pell Grants were mentioned in the recent budget deal. Was there a change to that? Did I make that up?
No, but they're looking at change, but I don't know that absolutely.
It's not final yet. Okay. How much is a Pell Grant now?
The average award is per year, it's about $4,800, $4,600.
Okay. You mentioned, we've talked a bunch about community college, the Drive to 55 program. Again, you're 2 months into this and just back to Memphis, but Governor Haslam rolls that out last year, correct, Bill? Which is to guarantee at least a community college education to every high school student. Is that a good thing for Lemoyne-Owen, or is that a competition with Lemoyne-Owen?
No, I think it's a great thing. I applaud the governor for that. I think that's awesome. And the college, Lemoyne-Owen now is a Tennessee Promise institution.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're looking at some associate degrees. That's why.
I got you.
And so we've had to request and document that, and so we are now a Tennessee Promise institution.
So you'll be able to issue associate's degree. Will you also potentially get kids, and maybe you do now, I don't know, who have gone to community college and then want to kind of finish out
we
their
do.
bachelor's?
We do have some transfer. Not as many as we would like.
Right.
But we do.
Theoretically, there's a bigger pool of those kids over the next few years as Tennessee Promise kicks in.
And I think that in this area, there are enough students that are not going to any college that we don't have to compete. There's enough out there for all of us to serve.
Okay. Bill.
Absolutely.
And of course, so much of the state funding that is involved in higher education is now not tied to enrollment, it's tied to completion. And performance as well. And Lemoyne-Owen College is a private institution, but how does a private institution feel those kind of pressures?
I think that any prospective student or parents want to know those kinds of data that will tell them what our retention rates are, graduation rates, whether we get students into graduate school, how well we place students into the competitive job market. So it's something that we should do. We haven't done as well as I would like for us to have done in terms of getting the data out there, but it's critical. And private or not, the numbers tell the story. And one of the things that we have to do being a private institution is that we have to raise money, and people want to give to successes. And so we've got to be able to tell our story, and we've got to be able to show the data, whether the state is holding us responsible for it or not. And if the federal government, Title IV, will produce scorecards on anyone that's receiving Title IV aid, Pell Grants, and some of the loans. So the data is still out there,
right,
for even private institutions.
Right, and the job is more of a challenge in that regard because of some factors that are beyond the control of any college administrator. Students now, I think back in my day, it was 4 years, and that was accepted. Now I think the average is 5 to 6 years.
Yes.
To complete
Yes.
and get your degree.
Yeah. And we've done a survey, and at least 80 to 90% of our students are working full-time, not part-time, but full-time.
Oh, as they're going to school.
As they're going to school, and that impacts their ability to persist. When oftentimes we think students don't persist because they're not doing well. Students are not persisting. What we're finding is because they don't manage their time well. And if they have to give up something because it gets to be too much, it's going to be school.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, if you work with an employer, if an employer is involved at some higher education institutions, that they are able to make accommodations in the schedule for working students if they're part of an agreement.
Absolutely, absolutely. That and that is always very good. That's always a very good thing.
We talked about funding. Obviously, student loans are a big part of financial aid. I had many student loans. I still have some coupon books somewhere. But there's a lot of conversation in the country and the higher ed community about too much loan debt. What is your take on that? Are kids taking on too much student loan debt? Is that not a good investment?
I think to some extent they are, only to the extent that they are not informed about how the debt can impact them later on.
Yeah.
I think it is a great investment, but I think what has traditionally happened, not enough training and information has been given to students about their responsibility.
Yeah.
And making sure that they follow up in repayment.
And a lot of it, I mean, when you boil down, it seems that when you boil down, and this is very close to my heart because I borrowed my way through college, and it was a great college and graduate school, and it was a great investment. And so I bristle sometimes at these articles that seem to say that all student loan debt is bad. Because for me, in my situation, it was an incredible investment.
Yeah.
But when you boil down some of the better articles, you find that where the real abuses about debt are coming in some of the for-profit colleges.
Yeah.
Does that just make you angry as an educator, as somebody who's working with kids at community colleges and people working full-time jobs, not just part-time jobs, and you see some of these for-profit schools really scamming kids?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And again, I think the most unfortunate thing is that students don't have the information that they need.
Yeah.
One of the things that people also talk about is that you've got to be able to pay those debts back. And sometimes students don't know when the loans are due, but the federal government holds the institution responsible for making sure that the students are paying their loans in a timely manner. And we get something called a default rate. Each institution that provides loans,
I gotcha.
The federal government will calculate a default rate. And if the default rate gets to be too high, then you jeopardize not only your ability to provide loans, but you jeopardize your ability also for Pell.
Yeah.
So the colleges have to take responsibility for educating students on when loans become due, because if they miss a semester or two and they plan to come back, well, the loan is due unless they do something. There are things that they can do.
Right.
So I think in the past, I don't think colleges have done a great job of educating students about loans and how it all works.
Yeah.
And
so
their
does that come down to a
responsibility.
staff for you all? You must have a staff of just people who meet, of counseling and
Well,
and so on.
that falls on financial aid.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we have a financial aid office and counselors who do that and a lot of other things. But
Just about 5 minutes left, Bill.
And parents and students have to be more consumer-like than they once were.
Absolutely.
I mean, and of course you're dealing with someone who is 18, 19 years old at the outset in many cases, but there is more information available about these things, like retention rates, as you mentioned,
Yes.
for students. So are students always as well adjusted as they should be to understanding that system on top of the academic system?
You mean the system, financial system?
Yeah.
No, not in many cases, especially the students that we serve. No, they're not always well versed or educated on that, and it's our responsibility to help them with that. Yeah.
A couple other things, kind of national issues. There've been, these horrific, there've been horrific mass shootings in lots of circumstances, but there've been some, a notable number, I guess, on college campuses. What do you do about that? What can you do?
You make sure that everybody, students, staff, faculty, and our security department, and everybody are very aware of the possibilities, and that they're looking around them, and that they report things that may not seem like it's anything, but they
Right.
need to be able to report anything that's very suspicious, and the training, of course.
Yeah.
Lots of training, lots
Right.
of practice in case something should happen.
Right.
But you can never be too careful.
Right.
Ever.
I know that Texas has passed, and maybe other states have passed these campus carry laws. Texas is allowing students to.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see more of that coming?
I hope not.
Yeah.
I think that's potentially very dangerous.
Yeah, I know people who thought
Yeah.
real hard about that.
Yeah.
That their son's going to be in a
know
a
that,
physics class
yeah.
with somebody it's just a strange
Yeah,
time on that.
I hope that we don't get very far on that. That's
Yeah.
I understand
Sure.
why one would want to, but I think
It's children. I
Yeah.
mean, it's young adults.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everyone wants to do anything possible to protect them. So, okay.
Absolutely.
The neighborhood that you're in, the school has been there for how long? It's moved a little bit, but it's been in that location forever.
Oh yeah, yeah. Since I don't remember
Right,
how long
yeah.
it's been there, but
Right.
for
right.
a long time.
And there's a lot going on in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, Soulsville, and
Yeah.
there's the Stax Academy and some great things. There's
Yeah.
but there's people, the building, the shopping center recently
The town
sold,
center.
the town
Yeah.
center. Again, you're only 2 months in,
Yeah,
but
that's
talk about are you a school, and is it important to you that you connect and connect more
absolutely.
with that neighborhood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The potential is just tremendous. And we've been in conversations with individuals there, and the gentleman that just purchased the property.
Yeah. Shadiac.
Shadiac,
Right.
yeah. I've had a couple of meetings with him.
Right.
He's met with some of our students. He's very interested in making sure that we connect. It's an awesome opportunity. Awesome opportunity.
Right. You lost, and we won't go into the details because there's all kinds of ugliness and uncertainty, but Robert Lipscomb was
Yes.
a powerful figure and a really important figure in the history of Lemoyne Owen. His loss, just in terms of his leadership on the board, means what?
It simply means that his leadership is not there pending the outcomes of the investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got just a couple minutes left. Bill.
In talking about what you have ahead of you in terms of what you want to do, it sounds as if the first priority here is to get things the way you want them on campus, and then work from there out into the community. Am I
Well,
right
the
on
first thing that I need to do is to listen to our internal and external stakeholders. So my first 100 days, I've been involved with listening to students, faculty, staff, the faith community that supports us, and business and industry. Because I need to understand what people think and feel, and what are their thoughts about where they think we should be. And then based on that, I have a few thoughts of my own, but I want to hear what people are saying. And these have been very, very good conversations for me to hear people's thoughts about Lemoyne Owen. And then from there, we'll develop strategies to position the college, and a vision, of course, and that we'll go out and share with people and begin to try to bring in resources.
You have a PhD in cell and developmental biology.
Yes.
How did you go from the lab to running?
You're still in the lab.
Are you still in the lab? Yeah.
No, not in a while. I haven't
Not
been,
in a while?
No, I haven't been in the lab in a while. Well, I thought that I never thought that I wanted to teach or be in higher ed. I always thought that I wanted to work at a national laboratory or government national laboratory. But as it turned out, I began to work at Le Moyne as a faculty member and began to do some research. I had a grant from National Science Foundation and really began to love working with students. And then from the students, I began to love academic administration, and it just kind of...
And you're a Le Moyne graduate, but did you grow up here also?
I grew up in Memphis.
And then we're gone for...
graduate school, maybe...
on these other jobs,
yeah,
and so on.
Yeah, I've lived in other places, so...
What's Memphis like to return to it?
It's great.
Yeah?
It's good to be back.
Has it changed?
Yeah, it's I think it's even better. I'm very impressed with progress that has been made. I'm loving it. Okay. And then I have a daughter and 2 little grandboys here, so...
Okay, all right.
That's always, that helps a great deal.
All right. Well, it is great to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
Sure,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. I hope
Thank
we'll
you
get you
for
back
having
as
me.
you get maybe more than 2 months in, and we'll have you back.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.
A2H, engineers, architects, and planners, creating an enhanced quality of life for their clients and our community. More about A2H's services and markets is at a2h.com.